In 1999, the Pakistani military crossed the Indian border, dressed as Mujahideen, infiltrating the Kargil sector and gaining control over vital mountain ranges with elevations ranging from 4,000 to 5,000 meters. The operation was carefully orchestrated, prioritizing secrecy to catch the Indian military off guard. This incursion occurred during the winter season, when both armies typically withdrew from their high-altitude posts in Kargil due to harsh winter conditions. Anticipating a protracted conflict, the Pakistani army made preparations for an extended duration of hostilities, including the procurement and deployment of gas masks and a large amount of ammunition. The mastermind behind this covert operation was the then Pakistani Army General, Pervez Musharraf. Musharraf executed the operation without securing permission from the Pakistani Prime Minister or other authorities. Only 4 high-ranking military officials, including Musharraf, were reportedly aware of the operation's details. In early May, a patrol team from the Indian Army went missing in the Kargil Heights, and efforts to locate them were thwarted by the infiltrators. This marked the point at which the Indian military became aware of the violation of their borders. Initially, there was speculation that the incursion could be linked to Kashmiri terrorists. Without a clear understanding of the situation, the Indian forces deployed troops to confront the intruders in the heights. However, facing heavy casualties, the Indian troops withdrew. It was at this juncture that they comprehended they were not engaging mere terrorists but a trained regular army, well prepared and possessing significant firepower. The unofficial commencement of the war occurred in mid-May. Initially, Pakistani troops held the advantage over Indian forces, acting as both aggressors and possessors of the strategic heights. Occupying mountain heights, Pakistani troops were adept at monitoring the movements of Indian forces and successfully repelling their attacks. A military axiom asserting that holding the high ground allows one to repulse an entire brigade with a machine gun and a capable dog proved true for the Pakistani troops. In the desolate hilly terrain, Indian soldiers found themselves vulnerable, akin to sitting ducks, while Pakistani troops maintained their elevated positions well within constructed bunkers. The Indian forces faced a significant challenge with their small arms. The recently introduced Insas rifle proved problematic on the battlefield, with reports highlighting persistent issues like continuous jamming and magazine cracking, particularly in the cold conditions of the Kargil region. As the conflict escalated, the Indian Air Force became actively involved to support the Indian Army. The IAF carried a series of airstrikes targeting enemy positions, supply lines, and infrastructure. But the presence of the US-made Stinger missiles in the hands of enemy presented a formidable challenge for the Indian Air Force, significantly impacting the efficiency and safety of their missions. Pakistan's possession of these advanced Stinger missiles instilled a considerable level of confidence, enabling them to contest the Indian Air Force in the strategically advantageous high positions during the Kargil War. Pakistan acquired these lethal Stinger missiles through collaboration with the United States in their joint effort to expel the Soviet army from Afghanistan. The Americans supplied these weapons to Pakistani agents engaged in combat against the Soviet army. However, following the Soviet withdrawal from Afghanistan, despite the United States' demand for the return of these weapons, Pakistan chose not to comply. The Pakistani military retained possession of the Stinger missiles, viewing them as a crucial asset to be kept in preparation for potential confrontations with the long-standing adversary, India, at their discretion. In the face of initial setbacks, the Indian Army initiated a successful campaign to reclaim key positions by the beginning of June. To minimize casualties and surprise the enemy, the Indian Army executed assaults under the cover of darkness and deployed highly skilled soldiers instead of a large force to engage the enemy. Employing a combination of artillery firepower and intelligent tactics, Indian forces effectively suppressed Pakistani soldiers, forcing them to remain in the bunkers with their heads down. Taking advantage of this situation, Indian soldiers skillfully maneuvered to reach the bunkers, neutralizing Pakistani positions. To heighten the psychological impact, Indian forces utilized megaphones in some assaults. By projecting war cries and simulated sounds of a larger attacking force through megaphones, they successfully instilled confusion and fear among the Pakistani soldiers, creating a perception of a much larger Indian brigade. This tactic coerced some Pakistani soldiers to abandon their positions and retreat. In certain instances, Pakistani defenders fought fiercely, even making desperate calls for reinforcements from nearby positions. However, the Indian para-commandos had already executed strategic operations to sever the supply lines to the mountain, preventing any significant reinforcements from reaching the beleaguered Pakistani forces. This isolation further contributed to the success of the Indian Army's efforts to reclaim control of crucial high-altitude positions during the Kargil War. By mid-July, the Indian Army had successfully recaptured most of the heights, and Pakistan was forced to withdraw its soldiers from the war front. The war officially ended on July 26, 1999, and India announced victory.